Day 1000 of Putin's three-day war in Ukraine. As Kyiv gets a green light to strike targets inside Russia with long-range US weapons, Ukraine marks 1,000 days since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. We look back today at the 2 years, 9 months and counting of what has become a bloody war of attrition. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion on February 24, 2022, the Kremlin promised to take Kyiv in 3 days. Very few believed then, and some still don't, that a victory is even in the realm of possibility for Ukraine's modest military over Russia's mighty army. Turns out, the Russian army is not so mighty after all. Moscow has had to bring in 10,000 North Korean troops to reinforce its badly depleted ranks, and is relying on munitions and weapons from both North Korea and Iran. But while Russian military casualties have been extraordinarily heavy, the Ukrainian military has also been hard hit, and incessant Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities, towns and villages have left at least 12,162 civilians dead since the start of the full-scale invasion, with the total number of civilian casualties, those killed and injured, near 40,000, according to the recent report by the UN Human Rights. So, while Ukraine remains strong and motivated, its citizens are becoming exhausted after nearly 3 years of war. In February 2022, Ukraine was caught off guard by the invasion, despite warnings from Western intelligence about Putin's imminent attack. By the end of the first day of the war, Russian forces had occupied the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, located just 60 miles north of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Continuing their southward advance rapidly toward Kyiv, Russians burned one of Ukraine's national symbols, the world's largest aircraft, the legendary super heavy-lift cargo plane, and Tu-25 Maria, originally designed to transport Soviet spacecraft. Further east, Russian forces broke through Ukraine's Chernihiv and Sumy regions and pushed rapidly toward Kyiv as well in an attempt to surround the capital. The Ukrainian military managed to stop the enemy just a few miles outside Kyiv. During the first few months of 2022, Moscow's biggest advances were in Ukraine's south. The Kremlin quickly seized control of Kherson Oblast, or region, as well as the nearby Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, securing a coveted land bridge between Russia proper and occupied Crimea. Russian forces entered Mariupol, a city of just under 500,000 in the Donetsk region in Ukraine's east. An 82-day siege followed, which saw Russian forces bombarding civilians and destroying hospitals, residential buildings, and other infrastructure as the city's Ukrainian defenders made a last stand at the Azovstal steel plant. The city's blockade resulted in thousands of deaths, with the total number of casualties yet to be fully tallied. Despite Russian advances, Ukraine's motivation to defend itself was remarkable. Unarmed civilians stepped in front of columns of tanks to block their advance, and Ukrainians lined up to enlist in the army or join territorial defense units. The Ukrainian military had its first breakthrough in the spring of 2022, when it liberated the Kyiv suburbs of Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, and others. The West, though nervous about antagonizing Russia due to its nuclear arsenal, nevertheless started helping Ukraine and providing military support, albeit reluctantly. In May 2022, Ukraine received the first M777 howitzers, marking the first significant Western artillery deployment at scale in the conflict. A month later, the arrival of high-mobility artillery rocket systems further shifted the balance in the war. The precise pinpoint strikes forced Russian forces to rapidly relocate their supply lines and adjust their logistics, allowing Ukraine to seize the initiative, slow down Moscow's advances, and alter the dynamics on the battlefield. In the summer of 2024, Russian forces began to make advances back into previously liberated territories and launching concerted attacks on Kyiv in the north. Ukraine countered with an unexpected offensive into Russian territory in the Kursk region, making surprising gains and exposing Putin's weakness. Soon after, Russia engaged 10,000 North Korean troops to reinforce its personnel in the region. After 1,000 days of war, Ukraine remains united as never before. Ukraine's fight is not only for its own sovereignty, it is also protecting stability, peace, and democracy in Europe as a whole.